and we are here with our September member of the month, Brandon Wong. Brandon is an active syndicator. He is the creator of Smart Syndicator, a program that we'll talk about a little bit more. He is a veteran and he runs his own mastermind. He does all of the things. So, Brandon, I'm so excited to have you on here. You have such a wealth of knowledge. You have such a strong network. You have such a remarkable way that you market and help your clients and other investors and other lead investors. So there's so much to talk about. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for coming on. I know there's so much that we can get to go through.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I want to make sure, obviously, we're going to spend as much time as we can talking about the projects that you have coming up, and then, of course, the program that you've designed specifically for syndicators. Before we get into all of the now, give us a little bit of background on you. You know, I know you're former military. Where'd you go to school? Any interesting experiences you had that have led you to where you are now?
Yeah, and interesting. With regard to school, I'm almost 40 and I just finished my MBA
Yeah. Hey,
at
that's awesome.
TCU, Neely School of Business. But prior to that, I did spend some time in the military from 2003 to 2011, and I grew up in first part of my life in New York. When I was 12, I moved to Las Vegas, and then in 2013, I moved to Texas, to start a family because Las Vegas is not really that great of a place to
Not
start a
super
family
family centric
necessarily.
there.
Yeah. So I finished out my stint in the military, and interestingly enough, I started my real estate investing journey when I was in Iraq in 2008 to 2009 because
Really?
a buddy of mine had lent me a copy of Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Oh, okay.
and I remember it vividly. I was reading it during like a sandstorm in the middle of Ramadi, and I'm like, dude, I've been lied to for like the past 20 years on, how to grow business, how to actually build a generational wealth in this country. And so I was like, I vowed when I get back and I get out of the military, I'm jumping into real estate with both feet. I was young and I wasn't quite as risk averse as you can imagine. I was in the infantry and the Marines, so
Yeah.
I was ready to take some risks. And so I did exactly that. I came back, I got a coach and started investing. I bought my first property that was a foreclosure that we flipped at the auction. And this is post mortgage meltdown. So there was a
Mm,
lot of property at the auction. And
yeah.
so that was my first stint into it. And, fast forward, I got into, a couple of years, I got into notes, non-performing notes, which
Okay.
were also very big during that time. Uh, my partner and I, we did almost 70 of those in 22 different states, which was a learning experience.
Yeah.
It
What
was
time period was that you did? That's a lot of notes, man.
2010 to 2000, I want to say 14, I bought my last one. And it was a
Mm.
combination of first position, second position liens. And those were really interesting and very profitable, actually. I just sold the last note that I bought was a second, and they just sold the property actually like 2 months ago.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So
And
I
yeah,
guess it's been what, 10 years?
it was one of those, it was a longer play because it's like you just buy it and you sit on it and
Hmm.
collect payments until the equity returns. Because when I bought this note, it was underwater. Um,
Oh,
but they were current on their first mortgage and it was a really nice house. And it was like a little bitty HELOC on the second mortgage that they
okay.
took
So you
out that
bought the
was in
HELOC.
default. So I bought the HELOC, and I think we paid like 12,000 for it. And it was on a like a $80,000 unpaid balance because it was underwater, so it wasn't worth quite as
Wow.
much at the time. And then she recovered all her equity over the years. We made structured a payment plan. And my only regret is not putting that in some type of tax deferred entity. I just paid, out of my business. But
Yeah.
um, in any case, I've, fast forward to 2017, I started investing in multifamily as a passive investor. And then became a GP in a couple of deals. And the first deal that this sort of leads into the how I came up with the concept of Smart Syndicator. My first deal, I really struggled to raise capital. I had like a 2 to 3 week window to come up. My partners and I to come up with like $2 million. And so um, I have a little bit of a marketing background. I used to do some agency work. And so I was experimenting with different CRMs, different marketing strategies, text messages, emails, and I really wanted to test out text messaging on this. And
Hmm.
so on this first deal, I was raising capital for. So I consolidated my database. I developed some automation to help streamline the process and build out the pipeline for, raising capital.
Right.
And I was really the beta tester for this, for this product. And if you've ever read this book called Rework, one of the best ways to validate a product in the marketplace is to build the product for yourself that you need that's not already out there.
Yes.
And so I developed with some off-the-shelf CRM technology. I built out, all these sequences and I launched it. And within just a couple of weeks, I had raised about $500,000, little over 500,000. I was like, oh, cool.
And
Well,
this
that
was your
worked out
first
okay.
GP that you raised that within
Yeah,
2 weeks?
yeah,
Man, that's
and that was
awesome.
my goal. And then I was like, I bet we could do this again. So I had my other partner do the same thing, and he raised $500,000. And I was like, okay, validation point number two.
Yeah.
So I was like, I think I have a product here. So I took it to market. We've been developing it, over the course of the last 3 to 4 years, and I've helped people the last, and obviously results will vary. It depends on the quality and quantity of the investor relationships that you have in your database.
Yeah. If you're cold
Um,
text messaging
yeah,
people, you're not going to get as much of a response.
right. And I don't, typically don't recommend cold emailing and cold texting people you don't know already,
Yeah.
especially if it's a 506B capital raise that you're working on.
Yep, good point.
Um,
So
but
506B,
yeah.
there's two, just so you guys know, for people who are just learning about real estate. For syndications, you're raising money from people to go out and purchase large assets, right? So these assets are tens or twenties of millions of dollars. And so in order to go buy them, you raise money from a group of people.
Yeah.
506B, the B stands for buddy, which means you can only raise money from
Mhm.
people that you already have a pre-existing relationship from. So Brandon, like you said,
Mhm.
you can't, if you're doing it from a B standpoint, which is, filed with the government, you cannot raise money from somebody that you do not have a pre-existing relationship with. So that's very crucial
Right.
for people who are going out there raising money or using a platform like this, which we're going to go into a little bit more in just a second. Just know there's 506B and then there's
Mhm.
506C. So we'll dive a little bit deeper into that, but just a little tidbit compliance there for a
Yeah,
second.
right. And so this gentleman that we helped raise the capital for, we helped him develop and customize his templates and everything that we had already designed.
Mm-hmm.
And he raised, I believe, 3.2 million for his deal. It's a little more experienced lead sponsor. I think he has
Wow.
10 to 12 deals under his belt. And so, that's not typical. I'm not going to say that that's like every member that's on our platform. But what we try to do is create the best conditions for success, the best environment with the best tools for the syndicator and the fund manager to succeed with their raise.
Yeah.
And so the on the multifamily side, people have syndicated multifamilies, self-storage, and what we ended up doing is we diversified a bit because we, experienced some of the challenges in the multifamily space.
Mm-hmm.
So we started a fund, GDI Capital Partners. My partners and I, who were buying multifamily together, we started a fund that invests in tangible assets. Really, we've got a full suite of things that we can invest in. But for our first tranche coming up, we are investing in an oil and gas project in New
Yeah.
York, as well as a car wash development that's in a multi-state deal where they are building out Tommy's car wash franchises.
We have a Tommy's here. I
Yeah.
know exactly which ones you're talking about. Yep.
Yeah, super high tech, state-of-the-art equipment. It's as if Tesla, Apple, and Chick-fil-A all got together and decided to start a car wash. You
What
get
a
the
unique
best
blend.
you get the best of the best of everything. And then the
Oh,
result of that is that, a lot of car washes struggle to wash 1,000 cars a day, and Tommy's can wash 3,000 a day. And they can
wow.
wash dualies because they have a treadmill instead of like this like rack railing system, and everything is computerized and automated. All the finance, like we actually visited with our lead sponsor on that with the operator, and he took us on a tour of the facility and how everything operates and how the team
Mhm.
is structured. And they operate with a very minimal, highly trained staff. And it's extremely efficient. Their water efficiency, they can reclaim up to, I believe 90% of the water they use.
Wow.
So yeah, and the buildings they're designed to last like 40 to 50 years. So there's just a lot of really cool stuff going on with Tommy's, and that's what we wanted to be a part of. So we're willing to fund their projects through our fund of funds.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then
I
the
love
oiling, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, so I know there's two branches of Brandon, right? So you've got your the Smart Syndicator, which is a
Mhm.
program, it's a CRM system for people who are going out buying properties, they're syndicating and they're needing to raise money. So that's kind of the
Right.
first avenue of like how you've been helping people and really adding value. And then the second way is your investment offerings that you have for people who are wanting to invest. Um, which which one do you want to dive? I want to go into like do a deep dive on each of them. Which one would you
Yeah.
want to go into first?
Yeah, let's finish out Smart Syndicator and then we can talk about the fund.
Perfect. Well, and
Yeah.
here's the thing.
Sorry.
I think this is going to be a big area for a lot of people because obviously this year and last year it's been really rough in real estate for a little while. Um, on the performance side, and because it's been difficult on the performance side, I know a lot of people that are trying to purchase assets and raise money for new
Mhm.
projects coming on board. That's been a struggle. That's been really, really difficult. So I guess I know you talked about you raised 500K, your partner raised 500K, and your lead at that time raised like 3.2 million.
Oh,
Um,
well, that was a different deal.
yeah, that was a
That's a
different
different
deal.
deal. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess in the program and everything that you've built on the Smart Syndicator platform,
Mhm.
I guess tell us what is it uh what is it doing and what have you seen it do with this difficult kind of time of raising money?
Yeah.
And who are the people on the GP side that are raising money and actively buying deals? What's the best feedback and who are the people that you think you're most able to provide value to in that space?
Yeah, typically our ideal member has some sort of mentorship in place that they've hired a professional mentor. I know they're expensive, but what that tells me, it communicates that they're serious and they're investing in their future. There's part of some type of mastermind or some type of professional mentorship, whether it be Rod Cleef, Brad Sumrock, any of the big names out there, Michael Blanc, is that because I'm not teaching people how to syndicate. Like I'm not teaching them the compliance, the underwriting of deals. Like we talk about these things, but we don't have a structured training program for that. You
Mhm.
know, I like that people come in competent and they're not trying to figure it out because raising capital is really challenging right now. It's always been sort of the biggest bottleneck for syndicators, but even more so now.
Yeah.
And you can't learn multifamily investing and try to syndicate and raise capital at the same time. Like I'd prefer them to learn the multifamily, learn the self storage, all that stuff up front,
Yeah.
and then let's go get the money. You know, it's really overwhelming and stressful if you try to do all that at the same time. And then ideally somebody who's experienced the pain of raising at least on one deal before, and they know the challenge with not having a unified system for texting, for emailing, for organizing and segmenting their database and that sort of thing.
So they have a
So
little
that
bit of
is,
experience
yeah,
with the process of
right,
raising money and understand the
right,
hurdles that they've had to overcome. That
mhm,
makes sense.
right. It's not your start here thing, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's sort
That
of
this is
like
more
now
like a
you've,
level 2 or
yeah,
3 for people who are
yeah,
syndicating.
it's like let's scale now.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's really who we've designed the product for and who would get the most benefit out of it.
Okay.
The best feedback that we get is from the actual mastermind calls because anybody can go out, build out a CRM, figure out the technology. They're going to spend some time on that, and they've
Hmm.
got to weigh the value of their own time to develop that. Are they a software developer or are they a marketer or are they a syndicator? Um, but we've also, through the mastermind call, we support and teach them how to leverage the technology. Whereas your typical CRM doesn't really do a mastermind call or let
No.
alone, anything with regard to syndication or raising capital. Like what are they going to teach you, if they've never raised money before?
Yeah.
So we understand the pain of raising money right now. And we do a mastermind, like a marketing mastermind every 2 weeks, every other Tuesday.
Okay.
And then we do a tech office hours every Thursday. And so the tech office hours is where, a lot of times support is just a chat, window or an email ticket. And it's really inefficient. And sometimes you just want to talk to a human or have somebody experienced look over your shoulder while you
Yeah.
build your campaigns. And that's really the unique value add that we bring.
I didn't realize that you guys did that because that is huge, right? Like a lot of times you're having to troubleshoot or read an article or even do like a chat bot with somebody
Mhm.
online, and
Right.
being able to like connect with the people who specifically designed this
Yeah.
thing and figure it out. I mean, I'm telling y'all right now, and David can attest to this. I am not a techie person. Like, I'm not good at it at all. So I'll tell you, I would 100% see the value of something like that because it's difficult. And you want to make sure if you're moving into this program and you're using and paying for this platform,
Mhm.
then get the most out of it that you can, right? Like use it to its full
Right.
capacity. So that's
Right.
huge. And in
Yeah.
your mastermind, you guys are talking about like different marketing ideas,
Mhm.
different, things to help you continue to build your business. So like you said, you're not teaching you how to syndicate, you're just bringing minds together to kind of
Mhm.
bounce ideas and have a brainstorming
Yeah.
session. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I mean, we have like modules on compliance because, I like to bring in SEC attorneys. I bring in CPAs, Wealth Ability, the Tom Wheelwright team. We've brought them in before.
Yeah.
And so I try to bring in subject matter experts because I don't want to just be the guy talking all the time. Like I love the technology. I like talking technology and problem solving with that. That's something that I'm passionate about. I'm hyper analytical. Like I don't know if you've ever taken the Strengths Finder 2.0 test, but like analytical is like my number one and futurist.
I have
Um,
one over here and I don't remember.
yeah.
I don't know if
Yeah,
it's
you
the
gotta take a
Clifton strength.
test. Yes, I think it's Clifton Strengths Finder
Yeah.
2.0.
I think I have one over here. Actually, I had to look it up. But I can
Yeah,
totally see that in you.
yeah.
You're very in detail.
Very, yeah, almost to a fault sometimes, but it's what I'm passionate about, is what I like.
I
So,
love it. Well, it's
um,
obviously played really well, and that adds so much value to other people who don't. Again, if they already understand and they're in a mentorship program with understanding how to syndicate and how to underwrite and how to do all of the behind the scenes stuff, there's a lot of forward facing marketing and like you said, compliance and making sure that you understand
mhm.
the taxes, things that really have an impact in the business.
Yeah,
That's still something that needs to be,
right.
you know, communicated. So, and I know David and I think we were on there as well, which we really appreciate. You've got a really great group of folks. So obviously they're getting some value out of what you're offering. That's amazing.
And I like to use the analogy where the rubber meets the road. That's where we are in the
Yeah.
syndication process. You come in with the knowledge already, like, okay, I need to be in compliance. You know, you already understand the difference between a 506B and a 506C,
Hmm.
because you could do a lot of harm with the amount of power that you wield with our system. Um, and so we try to guide you and build a framework around that to keep you out of trouble. We're not
Hmm.
attorneys, we're not lawyers, CPAs, but we try to, like, hey, you probably shouldn't say that, or you probably shouldn't put that in your marketing.
Yeah,
Um, but that's part of the value we try to bring.
absolutely. Oh my gosh, I love that. I don't know if you said this, how often are your tech office hours?
Every week,
Every
Thursdays at 2 p.m. Central. And sometimes people just show up to lurk. I call them lurkers. They just want to watch.
That
And
was
I
going to be
they
my next question is this something that is open where people can kind
yeah.
of get an eye and almost see exactly what's going on? Um, or is that not something that
Yeah.
you would rather promote? What are your
The
feelings on
the tech office hours, all the masterminds are for active members
that?
in the
Hmm.
community. They're not necessarily open to the public. It's sort of the exclusivity we've designed around that. And there's also very proprietary, sometimes sensitive information that goes through there
Okay.
that we don't want out in the public. For instance, investor really, contact information,
Yeah.
that sort of thing, because we're working through, segmenting a database that sometimes, somebody's private contacts might be exposed.
Yeah.
So I don't want
That's
to put
fair.
that out there. But the mastermind, the marketing stuff, I will occasionally, my thoughts are maybe once a month actually opening those up, because we've had some really cool speakers, and I think that people can get a lot of value out of them. Um, for instance, the wealthability folks, we had them on last week to talk about the tax advantages of, investing in oil and gas, like in intangible and tangible drilling costs, like how you can offset W-2 income, that sort
Yeah.
of thing. And there was a ton of interest among, GPs and LPs alike,
Yeah.
in that space.
Do we want to transition to that side now? Because I
Sure.
know we've talked about so on the Smart Syndicator, if you're an active
Yeah.
GP that's already raised money, and like Brendan said, rubber's meeting the road where you're already moving forward and doing the things in real estate to raise money and bring deals to life, then have a conversation with Brandon. We'll put your contact info in here as well. And talk to him about the tech office hours and the marketing and all that. And of course, Brandon, feel free to share that out there as well. We want to promote all that as best we can. So on the second branch of what Brandon does is he is a syndicator himself, which I think is one of the biggest reasons you've added so much value to people on Smart Syndicator, is because you've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, right? Like
Mhm.
you have experienced this, you're in it yourself, so you know the problems that syndicators face. So on your own syndications, when you're raising money, I know you said you've got multifamily, you've got oil and gas, you're doing the car
Mhm.
washes. So this is a way for people to invest with you, Brandon, on the projects that you have. So let's talk about that. The first one you mentioned was oil and gas. Um,
Yeah.
this is I want you to dive into this as best as possible, because I don't think people understand what it means, and that's almost like a taboo word. So we really have to
Mhm.
overcome some
Yeah.
preconceived notions, but then also the benefits that are affiliated with this type of investment. I mean, they're huge, especially from the tax side. So I'll let you talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, and just to zoom out a little bit, I always get the question, why car washes and oil and gas? It's such a weird combination, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is we have basically we call it the core four. So we want cash flow, we want equity growth, we want tax advantages, and then we want diverse risk diversification. So we want to invest in larger projects that are more spread out, and we want to invest with operators that have significant experience.
Yeah.
So our oil and gas operator has been in the lead, has been in the industry for over 40 years.
Okay.
I believe he's drilled over 1,500 wells, and only two were like considered
Mm.
dry. And he said the reason for that was human error, because when they were measuring the depths, there was a discrepancy. And so when they fracked, they missed.
Uh,
Um, and so on the car wash side, they've got 44 active projects. They've got, I believe, 12 are online and operational. So these are real operators. Like we've decided that instead of us trying to like figure things out on the operation side, let's just be the funding partners, and let's work with people like that are operating at a very high level. And that's a way to mitigate risk, is,
yeah.
are they learning on our dime, or have they done this before?
Yeah.
You know? And that was a very important question to answer for us.
So you're going out and
Yep.
finding people who are experts in their field that have been doing it for a
Yeah.
long time. You're
Mhm.
raising money from investors and using that money to invest with the experts. So, which is really
Correct.
powerful, right? Like, I don't want to go out and spend 20 or 30 years to go be the expert, but I am going to invest
Hmm.
with the person that's already done that. And then, of course,
Right.
you're the intermediary between those people and the investors.
Correct.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and we go to visit their project. We go and our MO is to run background checks just to make sure there's not like
Mm,
some shady business going on, because oil and gas has a very, very bad reputation. Very, like, of people just being shysters and taking investor money and kind of skipping town, or they're investing in one oil well, and that oil well doesn't hit and they
yeah.
lose all their money. Like
Ugh.
that literally happened to one of my business partners. And so that's
Mm,
that's how why we decided, let's do a 40 well project, and let's do it adjacent to an existing project that's already producing.
okay.
So This past week, we actually went out to fly up to New York. Actually got to stop by Niagara Falls. And I never really thought of New York as an oil and gas place,
No, not at all.
but apparently there's a ton of oil in like Pennsylvania and New York and West Virginia. There's a lot of shallow oil out there. And when I say shallow, the deepest well that we're working on our project is 1,500 feet.
That's
But
crazy.
and so it's vertical. There's no horizontal drilling, which makes the project more cost effective. So they're shallow and they're vertical. So that those were some key aspects of the project. And being spread out amongst 40, the if a couple of them don't hit, then it's not a huge deal to us. If it was just one well, that's a game changer, a showstopper, I should say,
Yeah.
if it doesn't hit. And so they have a project. There's a project right next door that they're working on. It's a 40 well. They've already permitted everything. They've already got, I think, 10 or 12 of them operational. Because we were just over there and I got to test out my new drone that I bought because I'm a tech nerd.
Yeah.
And so I took some drone footage and we got to see them in action. We saw their team. Met with our operations manager. We met with the contractor that they use to verify depths. He explained how they make a determination based on these triple logs that they use to scan the wells or to scan
Okay.
the bores. And so it gave us more confidence. We already liked the deal. And so when we went out to visit with them and just kind of experience the team,
Hmm.
we now, feel comfortable moving forward with that.
Yeah. Well, there's two
And
components to it.
yeah,
There's the quantitative numbers side, but there's the
mhm,
qualitative of like who are you investing with in
right.
all of the behind the scenes stuff. So that's you guys are checking out both.
Yeah. And just making sure that it's an actual project,
Yeah.
And they were drilling when we were there, they were testing depth when we were there. So
That's cool.
they have the teams, the infrastructure, the experience. And what made it more interesting to us is that they've already struck oil on the adjacent project. It's literally right next door. And they purchased a lease for another adjacent project that's been producing since the 80s. So we feel very comfortable with that area in
Yeah.
terms of is it going to produce or not. So
Yeah.
that's oil and gas. Now, when it comes to the tax advantages, what what we wanted to do is create opportunity for high income W-2 earners
Hmm.
to offset some of their taxes because historically when we've just been doing the multifamily stuff, bonus depreciation is great, but you can only use it against passive real estate losses or
Right.
passive real estate income. It doesn't really help the doctor, orthopedic surgeon that's making a boatload of money, but it's W-2 active income.
Yeah.
Um, and so the oil and gas, with this particular project, we're projecting to do 75% intangible drilling costs. So what that means is you can offset, and I'm not a CPA, but you can basically write off 75% of that investment just in the intangible drilling costs. And that's
In year one.
correct. A good
Wow.
portion of that year one. And then 25% tangible drilling costs. So there's a couple of different buckets that they would draw from. It just depends if they're like a business owner and they're already using up like because there is a limit to the amount you can write off
Oh, okay.
for the tangible stuff. So like if you just bought a dental scanning machine or like an x-ray machine, that actually sort of uses some of that up. So if
Mm.
you hit your limit on the tangible stuff, there's the 25% intangible that you can write off, which
Does
is
the
yeah,
tangible roll over? Like if you max out for 1 year, can it be used in following years? Or I don't know if
that's
that's a Tom Wheelwright question.
that might be a Tom Wheelwright question.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that.
No, that's fine. I know I put you
Um,
on the spot there. That's just immediately where my brain went. But here's the thing, like, because it is so there's so much that can be done on helping people increase their cash flow while minimizing their
mhm.
tax liability, especially when you're a high income earner. When you're making that kind of money, it is a huge tax burden. And to be honest, a lot of people that are doing, especially in the medical world, dentists, orthopedic surgeon, um, there's already a lot of other expenses that are piling up as
Yeah.
well between liability insurance and everything else. So helping kind of mitigate those costs
Hmm.
really can make a big difference, like especially being able
Right.
to offset W-2 income. So anyway, I'm just all about the
Yeah.
tax advantages of that stuff. I think it's great.
And then in addition to the to IDC, TDC, um, there's also depletion, which is like the IRS recognizes that oil doesn't flow forever from a well.
Hmm.
So over time, there's actually a spike in production in the beginning, and then it starts to graduate down. There's like a tail
Okay.
end of it.
Hmm.
And I believe it's 15%. Don't quote me on that, but it's against the income generated by the oil. So there's a third tax deduction that you can use.
Really? I did
Yeah,
not
I
know
think it's
that.
called depletion. It's yeah. Um, the reason for all these tax benefits and why the law was written that way is we want abundant energy in this
Hmm.
country, and we want to encourage what is historically a very speculative, high risk investment. Um, to we, they want to encourage investors to invest in that,
Yeah.
and that's why the same thing with real estate. Why do they get bonus depreciation, or why is there such a positive tax advantage with 1031s and things like that? Why is that? It's because we want abundant housing, we want affordable housing,
Yep.
and we want to encourage. The way you do that is you encourage investors to get involved with that, develop new homes, renovate existing homes. So I'll get
Well,
off my soapbox.
no, I think that's important because, like you said, we were talking about this before we started that oil and gas can almost sometimes seem taboo because there is a push
Hmm.
towards, electric energy, and that's great, right? Like, there's nothing that says that that can't be done. But there's two thoughts on this. One, the first one is there's so much more to oil and gas than just, filling up your car, right? Like you've
Hmm.
got petroleum-based pharmaceuticals, you've got the plastics that we use, all of the things that we use in our day-to-day basis use petroleum to be able to do that. And there's also gas, right? That
Hmm.
they're harvesting in those wells as well. But you said it best. The second thing is, and Tom Wheelwright mentions this in his book, Tax-Free Wealth, that he talks about the government is going to advocate, or the government's going to tell you what they want you to do. They're going to tell you where they want you to invest. They're going to tell you what they want you to be promoting. And like you said, affordable housing
Yeah.
and oil and gas have the biggest tax benefits because that is where the government wants people to be putting their money. So that's something just to kind of bring up the idea of, oh, well, is that going to face some regulation or some issues later on down the line? I personally don't think so because the
Mhm.
government is pushing people and advocating to invest in those areas because that's where they're
Hmm.
giving the biggest tax break. So I don't see there being a big
Right.
regulation issue coming in the future. I just don't.
Yeah. Yeah. And New York on a state level has some regulation that they've put in place very recently that made it a little bit more challenging. So with the adjacent project that's already underway that they're developing this particular operator, they ran into the first time they had the state enforce it's a greenhouse gas study. Um, they had to get like a 150-page report done
Wow.
to calculate all the different emissions from different things. If a cow farts on the property, they want to know about that in the
They want to know
calculation.
about
And so
it.
it's very, very stringent, but they were able to navigate that. It was unexpected because I believe, when we met with him, he's like, that it's been on the books for a little while, but this is the first time they actually enforce it, you know?
Oh,
And so
okay.
they put him through the ringer. And so it added some time to their launch date, but they still got it done. They got all 40 permits for that project. And that's not the one we're investing in. That's
Mhm.
already closed out. That's the one my partner's invested in. And so it's already producing about 120 to 150 barrels a day. And it's only about 25% complete. So the one right next to it is the one that we're helping to fund.
That's awesome.
And I forget where I was going with this.
Sorry, I distracted you. We went we went off on a tangent there for a second.
So we've covered the tax advantages.
What about the cash flow?
Go
So,
ahead.
like, what type of
Yeah.
returns when you're investing in y'all's fund? What type of returns are we looking at here?
Yeah. So the IRR for the fund, I believe, is 15.6%. Um, We actually had to re-underwrite after we visited the project because they elected not to sell the oil or not to sell the gas portion of it, but to actually recapture it and use it to power the project. So they're going to run a
Oh,
giant generator
okay.
to, so we did have to adjust the returns because of that. But let me actually pull up our latest deck, gdicapitalpartners.com/deck. And this is a 506c, so I can say that on here.
And
We
I'll
are
let, if you
allowed
want
to
to share your
advertise.
screen, you're welcome to. And we'll put that website that Brandon just mentioned. I'll have that on the screen so you guys
Yeah.
can visit that and go take a look at it.
Okay.
Start to poke around and
Yeah.
see what makes sense.
So the projected IRR is 16.3%, equity multiple 1.8. And for this particular tranche, we're raising about 2.2 million for this one. And I didn't really talk much about the car wash development side. The reason we combine these two asset classes is that you get the cash flow and tax benefits for W-2 earners in the oil and gas,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get the depreciation and equity growth from the car wash development. Because the exit with that is to sell to a hedge fund or a venture capital fund, is to build up a large portfolio because obviously the bigger the numbers, the bigger the equity multiplier you can get on EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, taxes, insurance, amortization. I'm not insurance, amortization and depreciation. I got it mixed up with PITI. But that's
Oh,
EBITDA, and that's basically just what is the income, what is it, what is the property producing, not accounting for the debt structure or the capital structure you have in place.
right. It's like almost in the
Yeah,
real estate world, it's almost like above the line and below the line, just kind of
yeah.
differentiating the two.
And
Um,
go ahead.
what do you have like a cash on cash projection?
Yeah, average annual cash flow is about 18.6%. And the bulk of that comes from, either the oil and gas, combination of the oil and gas income and I should just say the oil income now, and the sale of the portfolio of car washes averaged out over the 5-year period.
Okay, that
And
was my
one,
next question is
yeah,
what's the timeline on that? So 5 years.
right. And then one
And
thing
this
to
is a
note is
506c, you said.
correct.
Okay.
So we're
So you
allowed
had to
to
be an
market
accredited
this.
investor.
Yes.
Yeah.
The oil and gas income will continue beyond the 5-year period. Um, but this is just a snapshot. IRR is based on a given timeline, and we don't
Mhm.
have you don't calculate it in perpetuity. So just to be able to do that over a 5-year period, we had to isolate that out. But there
Yeah.
is an income that is shared beyond that one because those there's wells on that adjacent property that have been pumping since the 80s and they're still producing.
Wow.
Um, so I don't know if our project will be that. We'll do the same for sure, but it gives us a positive kind of outlook on that
Yeah, you've seen it done
long
before
term.
in that same
Yeah,
area.
right.
No, that's awesome. And you guys are passing along all of the on the car wash, are they doing like are you guys doing like a cost segregation
Hmm.
study on the car washes too, or
Yes.
okay.
However, it only applies after a certificate of occupancy is issued at
Mm,
the property once it's finished being built. So we won't enjoy that bonus depreciation until um, that's those are built out.
how long does that typically take?
18 to 24 months
Okay.
to from start to finish. It's about 8.5 to 8.8 million per location on average. It varies just depending on certain factors like the construction cost, labor costs in the area, and the average uh, EBITDA is about 50%. That EBITDA ratio for a Tommy's car wash, they're very profitable because they're very automated. A lot of the people that pay for the car washes are on a subscription. So I
Yeah.
believe it's between 60 to 70% of all the customers are paying every month like clockwork.
Yeah.
And
That's
that's
what
what
the
had,
people I've talked to in
yeah,
the car wash world, that's where it's at is the
yeah.
subscriptions. They're making hand over fist on that.
Hmm.
I have a car wash subscription, but
Me
I just
too. Me
I
too.
love it. But I'm like, I drive by, I'm like, I literally just run my car through the car wash. So I'd like to think they don't make a whole bunch of money off me. I feel like I'm getting my money's worth. And it's a mutual benefit, right? I'm like, because I go through that
Yeah.
thing a couple times a week.
Yeah.
So, oh my gosh.
Well, just I can't share the exact number, but just their hard costs are very low on a car
Yeah.
wash. Water and maybe some labor and soap, you know.
I bet they're still making a pretty penny. So, but I feel good about my
Me
subscription as
too.
well. So, mutual benefit, right? I want them to make money. I
Yeah.
want to feel like I got a good value. And so that's the beauty of commerce. So that's awesome. Well, I love that. Thank you. I mean, again, you've got the Smart Syndicator for people who are already doing real estate. You are needing to raise money, and this is a great way to streamline the capital raising process, make it better, more efficient, faster.
Mhm.
And then on the investment side, car wash and oil, because they're not doing the gas. So car wash and oil
Mhm.
investing, you've got cash flow, equity growth, tax advantages, and risk diversification all in one fund, allowing investors to invest with you guys while you do the due diligence and background checks on these people who have been doing these different industries for decades. So that's incredibly
Mhm.
powerful. As we start to wind down, I guess let's kind of bring it. We talked about Brandon at first, and then we talked about your deals. I want to kind of bring it back and finish with looking into your world. Right now, obviously, you've got so much going on, and a lot of good things. What's something that you really want to do more, but you really haven't had time for lately?
Ooh, that's a good one. Um, yeah, believe it or not, this is super counterintuitive, but I like video games a lot.
Oh, I guess techie, that
Um,
kind of makes sense.
but the probably the more important thing I need to do is spend more time with my kiddos.
Of course.
I
How
do
old are they?
have two little ones. My daughter is 10 and my son is 5.
Those
I'm
are
sorry,
such fun ages.
my daughter's 9.
9.
Yeah. Don't let my wife hear this recording.
That's all right. We'll have to hide it from her on social media.
Yeah.
Oh, no, those are fun ages though. Like they're old enough to kind of like go and do all the fun stuff and
Yeah.
you know, but they still think you're cool. So you've got plenty of time on
Yeah.
that. What kind of video games do you like?
I play on my computer a lot. So like first person shooters and that sort of thing, strategy games.
Yeah,
Anything that's like requires a hyper focus. I'm super into that.
that makes sense. Yeah, you're gonna zone in on
Yeah, I'm like
that
in
project.
another world for a minute.
Sometimes it's nice just to kind of disconnect and, especially as much as you guys have going on. Like you said, you were just in New York, you're juggling 100 different things. So being able to decompress for a minute, like I get it. I play, I have this game called Blockudoku or whatever. Anyway, it's like Sudoku with shapes. So it's like geometry and Sudoku all in one. My husband
Yeah.
thinks it's the dumbest game ever, and it's very mind numbing, but I can just lay there and like 5 minutes of boom, I'm just gonna decompress and get my brain in that stupid game. So I love it. So you've been doing this for a while, and obviously there have been a lot of experiences, and then even recently there have been a lot of changes in the economy, in the interest rate world, in the investment world, right? There's so much
Mhm.
going on. So if you were to look at the last 5 years, what new belief, behaviors, or habits have you adopted that you think have most positively impacted you, your life, or your business?
Yeah, I think um just being careful with debt, how you
Mm.
structure things. It is a double-edged sword. And for instance, with the oil and gas project, there is no debt. We're not taking out a loan for that. It's all equity.
Oh,
And so
okay.
the benefit to that is if oil and gas or like the price of oil drops like a rock for whatever reason, it's not unprecedented to have like a black swan event,
Hmm.
COVID or something like that.
At this
All we
point,
have
who
to
knows
do
what
is
to
kind of,
expect, right?
yeah, we can turn things off and then turn them back on when the conditions are right, when the conditions are better, and not get eaten alive by the mortgage, right? Because there is no mortgage on it. So that we become more risk averse.
Hmm.
And I think that now and moving to the future, that's going to be beneficial for us.
Absolutely. That's like you said, debt is a very powerful tool, but if it's not used
Yeah.
responsibly, it can cause a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
problems or concerns or, whatever later on down the line.
And if you can swing it, take out a loan from your own bank, right?
Yes,
From
there it
from
is.
your
There's the infinite banking plug.
if you can swing it.
I love it. You've been a really good, I mean, you're obviously like that engineer mind, so it was you understood it very well and we went really deep with that. But you're right. When you take a loan from your own bank, you don't ever have to pay it back
Yeah.
until you're ready.
No, it's just funny because people are like, "Oh, that's a scam." And I'm like, "Dude, you just need to understand it. You need to see who's actually using it."
Mm-hmm.
And the highest level people that I spoke to that are it's like who has the biggest pile of cash? Listen to that guy. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
everybody who said it was a scam they're not really doing anything, you know?
Yeah. They're,
And you just have to I honestly at the first time I was skeptical when I first heard about it. But it's like it takes time to learn it, like anything that's of value, you know?
just like investing, right? Like if you were to think,
Right.
oh, can I buy an apartment complex? Can I buy a car wash? Can I
You couldn't
buy,
fathom.
invest in oil and gas,
Yeah.
right? Like that seems scary. And, some people are skeptical of that at first, but once you understand it, you
Yeah.
really learn it and associate like what it is, what it isn't, what you should and shouldn't do, then you're moving
Yeah.
forward fully knowledgeable. So yeah,
Yeah.
you're exactly
So
right. Thanks for
it's
the plug, Brandon. I appreciate
yeah, no
that.
problem. No, I love having my investors set these things up because they're so thankful when they learn about it. They're like, "Oh, I had no idea," you know?
Yeah. Well, we love it too. You've got some great people with you. So we loved working with, your clients, your people, your investors. I mean, they're so knowledgeable already when they come in. So it's a great relationship. We love it. What are your favorite books or podcasts that you like to
Yeah.
read or listen to?
So I'm in the middle of Buy Back Your Time right now.
Okay.
I actually have the audiobook open right now. I was listening to it before we got on. But there's actually quite a few. I think it depends on what you're trying to improve, what aspect of your life.
Mm,
There isn't one book that's like a game changer necessarily, but Rich Dad Poor Dad really changed the trajectory of my whole life. Um, Covey's Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. That's
yeah.
great for understanding and building relationships and zooming out and having like a big picture on everything.
Hmm.
How to Win Friends and Influence People. Some of these are not new to any, people who are listening. Atomic Habits is a really good one. My biggest takeaway from Atomic Habits is like put barriers between you and your bad habits.
Yeah.
Like if you really like the cookies, put them behind everything, and put them in a closet somewhere. So you have to work a little bit.
Yeah. Makes you think. I
Um,
just reread Atomic Habits and
yeah.
it's so I like to go back and reread books because one, I run
Mhm.
out of Audible credits because I listen to them so fast. But
Yeah.
two, you always kind of pick up on a
Right.
new method of that. But it's the beauty of that book is that, Atomic is so incredibly small,
Hmm.
and that's what he focuses on. Like these are very small things that
Yeah.
add up to massive impact. Because sometimes, like so many
Hmm.
people think, oh, I have to make one big change and it's one big
Yeah.
event. Never is it like that. It's not like the movies,
Yeah.
right? Like it's all these little
Hmm.
bitty incremental things that have a lasting impact. And the book does a great job
Hmm.
of outlining that. Like when he talks about, I don't remember what country it was that was losing the bike race, and all they did was like change the color of the room, change their tires,
Yeah.
right? Like little bitty things that now they win
Yeah.
whatever championship.
They all add up, right?
Yeah,
All the little bitty habits, they make huge changes over time. And then it just
absolutely.
extrapolates, given you put years on it, it extrapolates over time.
Absolutely. Don't be afraid of small changes.
$100 million offers, Alex Ramosi, that's a good
Yes.
one. Really has Smart Syndicator in particular, it's really driven the direction of that.
Yeah.
I read that. I knew I needed to read that before I really started scaling that. And
Did you read the next one,
um,
$100 million leads?
not yet, but I need to go pick that up.
Yeah,
So
I read that one first, and then I realized that there was offers, and I went back and read that. Um, yeah, Alex
yeah,
Ramosi, I really like his stuff.
And then the EOS method, so traction
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, traction was written by the gentleman who designed the EOS and entrepreneurial operating system. So if you're like wanting to organize your business and figure out how to design KPIs that can actually be tracked over time and to grow your business, that's a really good one.
I'm not
I could
surprised that
probably
you
go
like that.
on.
That makes sense for you.
Yeah. It's something you can 12-week year is based on the same concept.
Mm-hmm.
I could go on about books. I don't want
I'm the same way. I'm
to. I
like,
should. I don't want to go
but I
too
mean,
crazy
here's the
with it.
thing. And like you said, a lot of these aren't for people who have, been reading, or these are some of these are almost like um not entry level, but they're so familiar
Yeah.
because this is where so many people get started. But so many people get started with these books because of the impact that they have. They're so powerful.
Right.
They cover things that, we might think that they seem obvious, or, we should already
Yeah.
know that. But sometimes getting back to basics is the most powerful thing. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad twice. So I read it when I was in, I don't know, maybe right after high school, beginning of college, whatever. And I read it and I was like, okay, but I think I had so much going on at the time, it didn't sink in. I read it again after my husband and I got married. And for whatever reason, it clicked. Like I just had that
Hmm.
light bulb moment. And the big takeaway for me in that book was, poor people take their income and use it to buy liabilities. Rich people take their income to invest in assets, which they then use the assets to go buy their liabilities. And that was the biggest turning point for me in talking with
Hmm.
Austin. Like, hey, we're not, what money we get in is not going to pay for, it's not going to pay for a house. It's not going to pay for a car. It's not going to pay for anything. The money we're making is going to go to investments and we'll live off of the cash flow
Right.
of that. Like, that was the biggest turning point for me that just, holy
Yeah.
crap, that makes so much sense. So,
It's a paradigm shift, right? But to borrow from Stephen Covey, Seven Habits, it's a
yes.
shift of. It's like the lens that you look through the world moves a little bit, and I try to have. I mean, it's not something I can really intend into existence, but I've had like a good 5 or 6 of those
Yeah,
in life in general. Um,
absolutely.
just being, shown, exposed to information you didn't know before, and it just changes your whole outlook.
Yeah. And like you said, those paradigm shifts, kind of like the habits, right? They're not,
Hmm.
it's not one big thing. It's all these little things. It's one more lens after the next, after
Hmm.
the next. But over extrapolate that over several years and you look back and
Yeah.
your perception and everything about your life is totally different than what it was 5 or 6 years ago,
Yeah.
just because of these small perspective changes. Yeah. I feel like the same thing. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, what I've learned being in the real estate space now for years, and not just real estate, but being around people who are
Hmm.
entrepreneurial and invest in real
Right.
estate. And, we don't just have our head down, stuck in the sand, maxing at our 401k. Seeing the difference in that has made a massive positive impact. So it's, yeah, you're exactly right. I
Yeah.
love it. And
And
then
just go
I know
ahead.
you've got the fund going on right now, and you've got Smart Syndicator. Is there any one thing that you're like super excited about that you just have, whether it's business or personal, anything that you're just absolutely pumped about that's happening or coming up soon for you?
Um, I have a veterans in real estate summit coming up
That's right.
that I have a special place in my heart for helping veterans become entrepreneurs. And so the Veterans in Real Estate Summit is something we're doing our third annual one, coming up October 5th in Colleyville. And it's really designed to help veterans get involved in real estate investing and just see the light that I want to share the epiphany that I had when I was in Iraq of like, oh man, you guys need to get in on this and develop your skills. And so I brought in some subject matter experts that are all, they're doing big things, buying apartments, buying self-storage, flipping homes, and they're all veterans themselves.
Yeah.
And so it's not like a sales pitch fest. Like we've all gone to events where they're just selling you training or, buy if you want the real good information, buy my
Yeah.
course or buy my book. And I didn't want any of that. So it's just veterans trying to help each other out. And so there's going to be good learning opportunities, good networking, and just that's one of the things I'm pumped about right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we'll get that. We'll get the link. We'll send that out along with this video and the recording. If you are a if you are a client of Infinity Investment Strategies, remember we have our own client page that you can, obviously you can share stuff on your own social media, but you can share within the Infinite Banking group as well. So feel free to share those links in that. So I'm going to get this pushed out in all those different avenues. But if you are interested in Veteran Summit, the link will be included. We'll put it in here, but we'll also put it in the email and social media posts, whenever we're sending out this video, because I think that's so incredibly powerful to give people an avenue to go into, especially for people who are disciplined and they've got that military background. There's so many people successful in entrepreneurship after their service, which, by the way, thank you for your service too, Brandon. That's just
no problem.
It's
Americans are worth it.
It's amazing what you guys do, and we value you very highly. So awesome. I know we're at the top of the hour. So Brandon, thank you so much for your time, your knowledge, your experience, all of the input, just so much. I knew it was going to be a lot coming from you today. So we'll get this sent out. And then what is the best way for people to get in contact with you? What's your preferred method?
Chatwithbrandon.com.
Perfect. Easy enough.
Yeah.
So if you guys have questions on Smart Syndicator, if you're actively raising money or wanting to, be more efficient in that aspect, talk to Brandon about that. Get on his calls with his tech support. On the other end of the spectrum, if you were looking to invest in a fund that is offering cash flow and depreciation benefits through car washes and oil investments, then there's another avenue to work with Brandon on that too. So we'll get all that sent out. Again, Brandon, thank you so much. This has been great and wonderful. We'll go ahead and wrap up here.
Thanks, Erica.
Bye.